like in the workout, every woman would run to the bathroom and put a pad on because they're like, we're going to pee. Like, and again, this idea of like,
that's pelvic floor problems.
Right.
Mommy brain isn't necessarily a thing. It's actually like nutrient deficiencies probably.
Yeah, like just because something is common and everyone experiences it doesn't mean that it should be normalized.
Welcome to Under the Sun podcast. I'm Ilea.
And I'm Emily.
Grab a cup of coffee and join us every other Wednesday as we discuss all things holistic health, faith, relationships, going against the grain, and really everything under the sun. Let's get started, and thanks for being here.
Your body does beautiful but crazy things sometimes when you're pregnant.
Yeah. But I'm leaking milk, so I'm so excited. Okay, so in case you, the viewer, have not noticed, it may look a little different in here. So we have a new setup because, well, we'll back up. We just have a new setup. There's a camera here. Switch it to me. Is it on me? Cool. And then I'll switch it to Emily. And we have somebody who is switching the camera for us, which is Dave. Say hi, Dave.
Hello.
Dave's my husband, and he's going to have to hear all things, period, poop, parasites, all things.
I mean, he listens to every episode, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, he would hear it anyway.
Like I told Ilea, as my wife, I hear it on the daily anyway. All things parasites, poop, etc.
I don't really hold back information very, very much. So, but we're excited for this updated setup because it actually makes the post-production a lot easier, a lot faster, which then means in the future that we could probably pump out more episodes and maybe go back to a weekly thing. But as for right now, because we're going to go into a season where, I don't know, does the wide angle show it?
Show your belly.
Yeah. There'll be a season where the editor will be a little preoccupied. So, but after that, you can maybe go back to one a week. But anyways, how are you?
Good. Yeah, I was thinking anything that you do that makes the process faster is helpful.
Yeah. So there'll be, just a little less editing. And these are things that like no one else would probably think about, but Dave and I geek out about that. Like, oh, cool. Like we have like a 3-camera setup and like lights. And right before we rolled, Dave was like, do we need a light, like uplighting back here? And she's like, nobody would notice. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. So
like, I just sit down and talk. I don't know.
Yeah. But it's just things that we geek out about because we're a part of production a lot. So how's your week?
Good. It
just started.
Yeah. I feel like I told somebody the other day, I was like, and I think it's a gift. I'm not cursing it, but it's just funny. Like I have the ability to know what I need to do for today. I can't even process tomorrow. And I honestly don't remember what I did yesterday. But today I'm good. I got today. So I feel like when people are like, how are you doing? It's just an interesting.
Depends on the day.
Yeah. I'm like, or like, what's been going on? Or like how, what's your past week?
Are you in distress?
Like? I don't think so. Like, I feel like it's just like, it doesn't feel like survival. Like it just feels like I don't need to worry about tomorrow. And I actually don't know it was great. Yesterday was great. We're just going to focus on today. What do I need to get done today? And where can I just pause and enjoy the process? Because otherwise what's the point?
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you?
Doing good.
Pregnant Ilea's doing good?
Yeah. She Garthy. Yeah, good. I'm 33 weeks pregnant. By the time people are watching this, though, I'll be more like 36, I think, by the time this is posted.
Yeah. I feel like you like took a really deep breath earlier. And I was like, ooh, I don't miss that. Like that's
yeah, the app that like actually we're gonna talk about this here a little bit later, but Mama Natural, like she sent so like I have her book and I am on her email list and she not she, but it's like an automated system. They like email you whenever your week turns over.
Okay.
And she was like, so you might be getting a little winded. And I was like, I've been winded since like 20 weeks. I was like, yeah, it's just now happening. Okay. But yeah. So yeah, a little winded and got like a foot in my rib cage. It's all good.
It's funny. Yeah. Because I mean, I feel like outside of like helping other people walk through more so with their children in hindsight, or maybe, I don't know, I don't have a lot of clients that I work with pregnancy wise. And so many of our friends outside of like, obviously you guys, and then we have some other ones, but in general, the people who I'm close with, like, I feel like you're probably the first person I'm close with that I'm actually like, and then because of the podcast, like digging into some of this, because so much has changed. Like, I'm like, my mind is blown some of the times because I am thinking like, where was this 10 years ago when I was pregnant with Kate or Alex? Like, I mean, you think like 12, 13 years ago, like some of this just wasn't even, who knew?
Yeah.
But it's funny, like looking back on some of it and being like, I don't miss any of that.
Yeah. Some days I'm like, oh, I could do this 100 times. And then the other days I'm like, we're not doing this again. And Dave's like, okay.
Wait till those like after, wait till those endorphins kick in, those good hormones. And then you'll be like, oh, yes, it's beautiful. Let's go again.
Oh my gosh. I'm blanking on what the hormone is. What do I always say, David? Oxytocin. I'm always like we both work from home. And so I'm like, Dave, I need an oxytocin hit. And so like, it's great. Yeah.
It's great.
And I love it. But some days are great. Some days are not so great. But on that note, now the podcast today, we've gone through a couple different scenarios through this women's health series. And now we're going to talk about, so you're pregnant and now what? Do we actually, before we start, do you want to talk at all about my blood work? Is there any value to share any of that information or no? We can talk about it maybe on another episode.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll go to it when it's later date.
Yeah.
I just think it's interesting. I don't know. Yeah, we'll talk about it later.
Yeah, because I think what's interesting is, again, kids' blood work can sometimes look different than even an adult's blood work. And so yours was you, and I have like one or two other clients who are pregnant. And so I have a couple friends who I'm constantly like, hey, is this normal for pregnancy or not? Like, so I'm still trying to wrap my brain around how blood work looks different in pregnancy and per trimester. And
maybe we'll also talk about it when we have Em on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay. Well,
I will do it for you. And I have a couple clients where I'm like, I'm happy to dive into that. But in general, I don't know if I want to spend a ton of energy memorizing that. So it'd be good just to bring someone else who can spout it off quickly.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I just didn't know if there was, because I know you were just doing it. I was like, I don't know. She came over with supplements. I'm like, great. Let's not.
Absolutely.
Because we talk about this concept of mommy brain isn't necessarily a thing. It's actually like nutrient deficiencies probably.
Yeah.
And so I was like, hey, I'm getting murky as all get out. Can you help me? And so I was like, here's my blood work from, my midwifery group. And so she looked at it. We got some supplements. We'll keep you posted. We'll update it maybe in the later episode. But
yeah. And I think it's one of those good reminders of like, just because something is common and everyone experiences it doesn't mean that it should be normalized.
Yeah.
And I feel like mommy brain, pregnancy brain, like we'll talk with friends or clients who are like, I don't like before my child or after my child, like right in that window, like I have no idea. Like I just forget everything. And that idea of like, don't you wonder? Like people who have Alzheimer's also forget everything. Maybe we should be a little more concerned.
Yeah.
Instead of just be like, it's just mommy brain.
Oh, it just happens. Maybe you should, I don't know, maybe it's a nutrient deficiency. Maybe it's a mineral. Maybe it's whatever. Look into it a little bit. Don't just be like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah. An idea of like, what does your body do during pregnancy? That's fascinating, right? Like how it shunts nutrients certain places and how it protects certain things because you're growing a baby. Like things that it wouldn't normally do.
Yeah. I remind Dave frequently how awesome I am. I'm like, he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, creating organs. Get out of here.
So there's, I was talking to a friend the other day and I tried to find like the article, but it was again, like 14 years ago. So she couldn't remember where she read it. And 14 years ago is a long time. So I'm going to keep looking for it. But she said that she had read when she was pregnant that there was a study done of like pregnant women and just the energy that they exerted throughout the day of being pregnant. And they compared it to someone who climbs mountains. And the energy was the same. And so when her husband would come home, he's like, how's your day? She's like, I've been climbing mountains. I've been climbing mountains.
Yeah. I try not to. Yeah. I say this because he's listening, but he'll be like, oh man, I'm so tired. Such a rough day. And like in my mind, I'm like, you don't even understand.
Were you climbing a mountain? Were you climbing a mountain? No, you were not.
But I don't say that because I didn't like it when I've had like acquaintances, friends who are pregnant.
Yes.
And then like we were, touring. I was working full time and part time, 2 separate jobs, and we were touring a lot. And I remember I had a pregnant like friend who was like, you don't even know what tired is. And I'm like, well, it's a different type of tired.
Yeah.
It's like a more of a cellular tired of like, oh, I have no choice but to lay on this couch and take a 10-minute nap.
Right. Well, and I will say it's been interesting, like me reflecting as I've researched and as you and I've talked and as I've talked with other people more recently about this, just in terms of pregnancy. It is interesting to me as I like think back on just the process of my pregnancies and how terrible they were, and how exhausted that I felt. And you think like with deficiencies and with just not supporting my body and having all these other issues that were also going on, which I think a lot of people do and a lot of women do. And so it makes you wonder like, yeah, you probably like can't get up off the couch. And that is not just like, I think that we're so quick to be like, that's just pregnancy versus like, ooh, no, pregnancy was just a huge burden put on a system that was already burnt out.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm trying to keep the mindset that like it could have been probably way worse if I wouldn't have done all the work like beforehand.
Yeah.
Like if I wouldn't have done the whatever year and a half of prep time, like I probably would have been just leveled the whole pregnancy. I've had friends who had morning sickness their whole pregnancy up until like the kid came out. And I'm like, I know it was only 4 weeks that I had morning sickness, but it was a long 4 weeks.
Yeah. I was thinking about you too, because you had mentioned leaking. And so I was reading a brain book, and it actually was just interesting because it quoted a study that, because, breast milk is a drainage pathway, and that they would test breast milk. And the study that he was referencing the number of like heavy metals that were like coming out of breast milk. And so it just, again, was that reiteration of like, holy smokes, like prep work before is so vital, because what are you supposed to do at that point? Like, do you not breastfeed? No, because that doesn't make sense. But then at the same time, now you're leaking heavy metals into your child whose brain is developing.
But it's already been in there too, right?
But there is a protective mechanism in utero that changes a little bit when they come out.
Interesting.
And the brain, just so it was, again, just like doing work beforehand is super, super important, because then your chances of, exposure is significantly less.
Yeah.
Because you've done work.
Human body is freaking cool. Actually, not even the human body. The female body is freaking cool. I was just talking with Dave earlier about how I've taken
Dave. So is the male body. I mean, it is also very.
Well, as the current male body representative in the room, I would say it's pretty straightforward and boring. Yeah.
You can't grow eyeballs. So, but also I couldn't do this without you. So it's a whole thing. No, but we were just talking about, and I'll be quick about this because we should get into the topic, but of how like your baby's saliva can like communicate through your nipple and like tell your immune system that, hey, my kid's getting sick. I need to go into my antibodies and be like, okay, I need something for the flu. So I'm gonna, or like, I can create antibodies, and your milk will actually get thicker and more like colostrum or just more fatty to help your kid fight off this infection. And I'm like, oh, I am so cool. I've never felt so cool. So it's great.
That's why antibodies are so important, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But there's still, I had someone already that was like, you're going to breastfeed, there's nothing wrong with formula versus breastfeeding. That's like your own personal choice. But someone's like, don't you know that's like, it's more nutrient dense to like have like to feed your baby formula? And I was like, that's okay. And I like didn't know how to respond. I was like, Well, that's not factual. Okay. And then I just laughed. I was like, you're not a person I want to waste my time on. I don't know.
Nutrient, like what a funny thing. Like, since when did children need that?
I had a friend who her grandma like borderline disowned her because she was breastfeeding. Because like in her day, it was like you give formula because that's what all like the ads. Like, do you remember those ads that were like formula?
The same time where all the doctors were smoking in the delivery rooms.
Yeah, for sure. Or they were doing like the twilight sleep. Have you heard about that? The twilight sleep births.
Yes,
and it's like
my grandma's like, I have no idea. Like,
really?
Yeah, they would just.
Did she do twilight sleep?
Yeah, it was all.
I have got to talk to her.
Okay. Yeah, she and my grandpa wasn't in the room, so she's like, yeah, I actually have no idea. Like, they just came out.
If you don't know what that is, you should look it up. But
it's so interesting.
It's
because I remember asking her, and she was like, I don't know.
All of them, all of the kids. How many kids? Did she have?
3. I feel like my mom and my aunt it had to have been all of them. Or I feel like she would have had memory of what it was to push. Yeah. So she had no memory of any of that. Like, she's like, oh, yeah, no. And she was on diet pills with all of them because they didn't, want. And that's, the history of like the vitamin K shot. Like, that's when it came. Well, yeah, because these people were so nutrient deficient that their children were nutrient deficient as well. Yeah, no, she she misspelled my mom's name. And so it's spelled like a boy versus a girl.
What's your mom's name?
Terry.
Okay.
And so I feel like that was the story. Like, grandma was still a little bit under medication.
Oh.
And so it was like,
that's terrible.
Put a Y there, not an I.
Oh, wow. Oh, man, I want to talk to her about that. That's cool. That's not cool. It's not cool. Like, it was.
She thought it was great.
She was happy with it?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
I'll have to ask her. I mean, we haven't talked about that for years, but I have to ask her. My mom always listens to these podcasts, though. She can help me remember to ask grandma about that.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Cool. That's awesome. All right. Okay. So we actually have notes today because Emily was so gracious and prepped it. So
this is also like, oh wait, what do you need to be pregnant? Like, again, I just my knowledge of that is more limited than I felt confident. I was like, I got to research this. And then I got like slap happy and like watching some of these like videos or reading things like at like 10:30 at night. John,
you get slap happy though.
I do.
Like that.
I do. At one point, Alex is like, I can't sleep, Mom. You're laughing too hard. I'm like, I'm sorry. It was good.
Good.
We all need to laugh. So there you go.
All right. You want to kick it off?
Sure. Yeah. So, I think in this series where we're at is, okay, so you got pregnant. Now what? Regardless of prep you did before, whatever, like, you're pregnant. We're in this stage of pregnancy. What do we do now?
Next right thing. Next best step.
Yeah. I think that I remember when just being pregnant, and I don't know if I read this somewhere or I don't remember how I had like the knowledge of this, but I remember thinking like, oh my goodness, like this is the last time, or I no longer get to what I do doesn't just affect me anymore. I mean, yes, before it affected John and it affected my family or friends or whatever, but like, I don't know. I feel like that was my immaturity too, for just being like, I don't know, nobody cares, versus like, oh my goodness, everything I do now affects somebody else, including what I'm eating. But I didn't have great knowledge of that for sure. Which for me, the next right thing was like, you go to the doctor and you get on whatever prenatal they say. But so I think that when looking at nutrients and looking at how to support the female body while you're pregnant, a lot of it honestly is very similar to what we would do for anybody to just be healthy, right? Like, yes, you're pregnant. Is there some grand, thing that you need to like tap into? Like, yes, there can be some specific nutrients that are important, but a lot of ways, like just whole nutrient foods.
Yeah.
Are so important.
There's a book right behind you. It's called Real Food for Pregnancy, and it's really good. And it kind of, it's basically just, it's like eat meat and vegetables. And then it kind of debunks a lot of the things that you have to do in pregnancy. Like, oh, no sushi at all. No lunch meat. It kind of no caffeine. And it kind of goes through all that of like what's actually research based and database versus like old information about like listeria is from like the 80s. It's like, well, people were really screwed up in the 80s. They just left their meat out on the counter for hours. Now we know it needs to be in the fridge. But
yeah.
That's a good book. You should listen to it or read it.
Okay.
Not you. Sorry.
No, well, I'm just curious now. Like real food for pregnancy.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
We're good.
Because I think again too, like I always thought that was interesting when they were like, don't eat tuna, don't eat, don't clean out your kitty litter. Don't.
I think that's legit.
But my question is, so it's only for pregnancy? What changes during pregnancy that like we're supposed to like, should we use caution all of the time around some of these foods and some of these things?
I don't know the whole deal with kitty litter because we don't have a cat, so I didn't really look into it because I didn't care. But the other things is just, I think it's all listeria based. I can't remember. I read that again in the first trimester and now I've kind of forgotten it, but I'm like, I've got the basics. Eat vegetables, eat meat. And, you know, sometimes I have a organic lollipop, but it's great.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and I think in general, like the body just gets super, inflammation starts to rise in pregnancy. So like not only whole foods, but trying to be very conscious of foods that are inflammatory. That's going to make it harder. You know, foods that are processed. You can actually be starving on processed foods. Like you can be overweight and super heavy and be eating tons of calories. But if they're all processed, empty calories, then your body's actually starving. And now that you're pregnant, all, nutrients are shunted to the baby. So now you're really starving. If you're already starving, then your baby has no nutrients.
Yeah.
And then even like some practitioners I know who work a lot with pregnancy, like they don't always even recommend a prenatal. It's like, it depends. Like, do you need it?
Yeah.
Like, is your food super diverse and you're eating, all these really great variety of natural foods that are supportive of the body, naturally lowering inflammation, not processed. And then like, why do you need a prenatal, or do you still just need individual specialized type nutrient support?
Yeah. Prenatals only became a thing because of our nutrient stores, like because we weren't well nourished. And so then we were like, okay, crap. Well, we should probably make sure that they at least the babies have something to draw from.
Yeah. So I always find it interesting when people are like, I stayed on my prenatals because my hair was great. My nails were great. I'm like, maybe you just needed those nutrients.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true.
So, I'm not saying it's a bad thing to be on those. I think it's somewhat like insurance.
Yeah. I think quality of prenatals matters because there's some that not all are equal, just like all supplements.
Just like all supplements, for sure. Yeah. So I would say, like, again, that whole food diet, I think when it comes to being nauseous specifically, there's a lot of reasons that and it seems like that can happen. But it does seem like the more bitter foods, because it just tend to seem like gallbladder liver relation. There, again, can be other reasons, but so anytime we can eat bitters, I know a couple friends who felt great if they would eat a grapefruit after they, ate their dinner, or if they had some lemon water first thing in the morning, like things like that just kind of those bitters, or they would do a supplement with a shot that was like specifically a bitter. And again, with pregnancy, there's some counterindications. Yes. I'm like, is that the word? Is that the word I'm thinking? With certain herbs. You would still want to find one that's safe for pregnancy.
Bitters meaning like dandelion root tea, lemons.
Yep.
I didn't know grapefruit was a bitter. What else is a bitter?
Most your citrus is bitter. So the cool thing is, if like in certain supplements that are more specifically like called bitters, you do it like a shot before your meals, and then that helps digestion start. A lot of times they'll even have like orange peel and lemon peel and things like you're probably not going to be sucking on a lemon peel or an orange peel. Yeah. But just anything so that bitter helps stimulate kind of that liver gallbladder. and then just digestion in general. So again, when you have babies sitting on your belly, digestion is a little bit more tough, or at least has an added stressor.
Yeah.
So anything you can do to aid digestion is important to make sure we're absorbing all the great foods we're eating.
Yeah. Lemon water ended up being what I ended up doing pretty consistently when I was nauseous. Mind you, it was like a light switch. It was like one day it was just like, oh, it was gone. Like morning sickness was gone. But it was lemon water that kind of like made me able to function in the morning to get me.
And it's so interesting because I was nauseous with Kate the whole entire pregnancy. It just never, ever went away. And she struggled, like her biggest organ that we struggle to balance is her gallbladder. So it's just interesting. I've always been curious. I can't guarantee there's a correlation, but I've always been curious, like, oh, like I was super sick the whole time with you. And then.
Weird.
Yeah.
Oh, poor Kate.
She's good. She's fine, but it's just an interesting, like, oh, I don't know. Makes you think.
Yeah.
So I would say, again, just everything that would apply to most people when it comes to just full nutrition, lots of, variety, lots of nuts and seeds and fruits and vegetables and meats. And obviously if something.
Quality water.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not tap water.
Right. Yeah. Because again, you're exposing chlorine and fluoride and all these things.
People get on this bandwagon though. They're like, oh, my town has great water. And I'm like, does it?
How do you know? Are people sending
We literally have a water test upstairs right now that we're about to test tonight, our water. But water matter. Like my jug isn't down here, but adding salt to it and
quality salt, right? Some people go
quality salt, not table salt. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think some people are like, oh, I'm going to add in white table salt. I'm like, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
But honestly, my preference, some people, I think you like the real salt. Yes.
Yeah.
I actually love gray salt, like the gray
That's what I have
salt.
upstairs. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. Some people love their pink salt or their real, like the real brand salt, but
I have both and I prefer the gray.
Gray. I do too.
I don't know why, but like if I have a choice, that's what I use. But
yeah. So I think that is important from a nutritional perspective.
Oh, you have that right there. Good hydration. Sorry.
It's just lower down on the list.
Hey, I have a question for you. Is there like an electrolyte drink that you like as a practitioner, or are there really any on the market that you actually, because like people are so obsessed with this. Can I throw brands under the bus? Who cares? Liquid IV. And the first ingredient is sugar.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, what? Is it hydrating you or is it just boosting your sugar and making you feel good? And
yeah. You say that and I'm pretty sure John has like a whole bag of it.
Sorry.
No, I don't
judge anybody who likes it, but I just I'm like, I need something. Cause I was looking for stuff. I was like, okay, like it's hard for a while there, it was hard for me to get down water. And so I was like, okay, let's.
Yeah. My favorite is LMNT brand.
Okay.
They actually at one point had like a chocolate mint one that when you added it to your coffee, it was like chocolatey, but also salty. Have you ever added salt to your coffee?
No.
Like salt enhances flavor.
Oh.
So anyway, it's really good if you add like their chocolate mint one. But the only thing with Alimenti that I find is just it's more expensive. So people tend to go the cheaper route. But it is my favorite. It's something I would recommend to clients outside of just regular salt. And then Organo does have kind of like an electrolyte packet, but it is great, but just it does have some added vitamins. So it would just depend on if you needed to have that much vitamin, like B12 and stuff. But energy wise, it's my favorite. But Alimenti is a good electrolyte option.
I'll look into it.
Yeah. Because so again, the idea of like balancing your blood sugar with food and balancing hydration and making sure that is really, really important. And then like you would say for anybody, but I find that pregnant women just struggle a little bit more with drainage. Just this idea of like, are we pooping? once, twice a day. Like you have to be pooping. And a lot of women get really constipated.
My poop's great.
I love it. So good.
I got good poops.
Yeah. And I laughed because like my digestion was so bad with Kate, I probably would go easily once a week. And again, I remember being like, is this a problem? And they're like, no. Like I remember like seriously.
At least magnesium. Like take magnesium.
Yeah, no. Like I seriously remember like drinking Epsom salt because I'm like, it says it's like, again, this is like, yes, maybe there was probably Google at that point, but like there just wasn't a lot of information. And so I remember I was like, I have to go to the bathroom so bad. So again, it seems like a pretty common problem with pregnancy, right? Liver support. Obviously no castor oil packs because castor oil in pregnancy can contract contract your uterus, which would not be good.
No, but I have
done too soon.
I want to talk to my midwife about, because I did lots of castor oil packs before pregnancy. And I'm like, well, if once I reach term, wouldn't it be fine to continue on with castor oil packs? And if it induces labor, great. If it doesn't, great. Same with like enemas. I'm like, did them before. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's not medical advice. That's just something I want to talk to my midwife about because I'm curious because I don't know. Castor oil packs always made me feel so good the next day.
Yeah. And I'd be curious too, like even like I get like coffee enemas stimulate, but I've never come across water enemas being bad during pregnancy if you were really backed up.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I say coffee enema as if like that's like what you have to do, but I know there's water you can do too, but
it's all sorts of weird enemas if you like.
Yeah. Isn't it like salt water enemas? Enemas.
I mean, I've heard of people that do like green powders as an enema. I don't really know why you would, just for absorption. I don't know, because your small intestine's the one that absorbs that. So I'm not really sure. But like people do like probiotic enemas. Like
I could maybe see that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's funny. But yeah, I would say like obviously focusing on drainage. Like, oh, I'm pregnant. Like, okay, great. Are you still going to the bathroom? Do you feel like lymph? I mean, that picture, I was almost like, can I share this?
You can share it. I don't care. I have no shame.
But yeah, like making sure your lymphatic system, because like that, you can retain fluid and you are increasing fluid just during pregnancy. Like it should be like you should be retaining some fluid or holding on to fluid.
So what she's referring to is I sent her a picture of like my legs were like purple from I had just sat too much all day for work, and my legs were like purple, and I was like, I should just do some dry brushing. And so I just dry brushed one leg, and maybe we'll post it on our Instagram. How about that? And that the difference between one leg, it was basically like, it was like a regular normal leg, and the other one was like purple and veiny and blotchy and weird. And but even the other day I sent you a Marco Polo, and I was like, my like right lymph is, you know.
Oh shoot, yeah. I never responded to that. Sorry. Oh. But yes, making sure your lymphatics
you did respond.
Oh boy. Never mind. I totally responded. Forget that.
What are do you have like, for anyone listening who is pregnant and is having like, I don't know, circulation, lymphatic issues, or any tips you have?
Yeah. So one of the things, my friend Emily, she has a supplement company, and they specifically made their Drainage Essential supplement conducive or like safe for pregnancy. So that way you can take a supplement that keeps your liver going, your kidneys supported, your lymphatic supported, your brain supported, like all that great stuff. And it is safe for pregnancy. So from a supplement perspective, that would be a great option for doing that. And then I think dry brushing would be great for keeping that.
How often do you dry brush? Or like,
yeah, I mean,
because it's very different out there on the internet. Like I looked up like how often should you dry brush, and like one person was like only once a week, and then And then some people were like, I dry brush every day.
Yeah, I would say every day. Like unless you're like brushing really hard, but like it doesn't need to be hard in order to get your lymph moving. The other thing with lymphatic, which is really interesting, and I don't know, maybe this is too not pregnant related, but just lymphatics in general, is in order for your lymphatic system to move, you need a lot of just overall energy in the body. So there are things like going outside and getting sunshine, things that, guarding your body against a lot of EMFs and that electromagnetic field, like anything man-made, right? So protecting our body from that helps us store energy. Eating good nutrients, like getting your feet in the dirt, grounding, like being outside in the sunshine. Those are all things that are going to help increase the energy in the body. And that actually turns the lymphatic system, that liquid in matrix, I don't know, is that the right word? But it turns it into kind of this fourth phase of water, but it needs electricity in order to do that. And so one of the things, again, I think we focus so much on lymphatics, like dry brushing and tools and elevating your bed and doing these things, which can help for sure. But it's also like, yes, but there's also an energy component. And if we can focus on the energy component as well and hydration, then we can get that lymphatic to movement, which I feel like is not only good for drainage, but also just for your body in general. When you're pregnant, like moving is important. So lots of, walking,
that's where I failed. I was just telling Dave that I was like, I do like 10 squats. I feel like all my leg muscles have just deteriorated, but that's my own fault.
And it's hard when we're like coming off. Like, I feel like, do you feel like this winter?
Oh,
I'm like,
it was the worst winter of my life.
I'm like, I've been cold since September. Like, is it going to warm up anytime soon?
Yeah.
So I feel like that's been tough. Like we just, at least
we keep getting like one day where it's nice. And it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy. And then freaking rainy. And I'm like, I'm losing it.
Yeah. And even on like those like nice days, if it's been like snowy and rainy, then you still are limited as to what you can do outside, I feel like.
Yeah.
Because it's still like gross and wet. Yeah. So yeah, I would say to make sure that drainage is also a huge part of just healthy pregnancy. Again, this idea of stress, and I feel like we talk about this a lot, but like we can't always control everything our body does. It can't always control everything that our environment is doing, but anywhere where we can limit stress, because stress has such a huge component on blood sugar, and blood sugar in pregnancy can be a little bit more difficult to balance. And so an external way that we can really help our blood sugar is by, doing what we can to manage stress. And that helps you even move into like the first couple of weeks, first couple of months. Some people, the first year or so of new baby is tough. Like it's hard. And so if we can take this, again, I almost feel like we get 9 months of pregnancy to really make good habits, to make good rhythms, to eat good, to, learn to slow down, to learn to rest, to learn to manage our stress. And we have that 9 months as a preparation. But I didn't, and a lot of people I know don't lean into that 9 months as like, no, this is like good for me. This is like, let me look into all the closets of my heart and my life of where like stress is really bad, and where lifestyle choices aren't great.
Yeah, because it's, again, back to what you said in the beginning, it's like you're making for choices for more than just yourself now. It's like your stress is now affecting more than just you. Because like we will take on a lot to be like, oh, no, I can handle it. I can handle it. But how much additional stress are you adding to your child or giving to your child for really what purpose? Like, does it really serve anybody? Could you have said, no, I don't want to hang out because I'm sleepy and exhausted and stressed, and now you just have an excuse to say no, and before you probably could have done that in the first place.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. And if we can't say no during pregnancy, are we going to be able to say no when they're a little baby? Like, I'm amazed at how many friends, like I've heard either pose this question and they're like, they're like, oh, my child has a runny nose. They're like, do you think I should take him into like daycare? I'm like, what? Like, let your child rest. But we haven't created the space for our kids' lives to slow down. So if our life continues even within pregnancy and we're just highly stressed and we're running the rat race, and then a child comes in, now the child has to also conform to that culture and that rush, you know?
Yeah. Along the same vein, there's a podcast that I listen to called Down to Birth, which I talk about all the time. I think I've mentioned it multiple times on the podcast, but they're great. I love them. But they talk about like, if you can't make hard decisions in pregnancy that even sometimes people don't agree with, then like that's going to be the whole rest of your life is you making decisions. Like, is it going to be based off of what you actually want, what is best for your child and your family? Or is it going to be based off of other people's opinions? And it starts with pregnancy and it starts with the birth of your child of, nope, this is the start of our new family unit. And this is the boundary that we're going to set up. And this is how we're going to operate as a family. So whether it's with stress or not overcommitting, you're teaching your child either good habits or bad habits. And it all starts in pregnancy. So
yeah, no, that's brilliant. Do you feel like you've leaned into that?
Oh yeah, it's great because like,
I love it.
But there's also a new confidence of not just that, like, I'm the mom, like I'm growing the person. Like if you didn't help create it, your opinion isn't valid here. Like again, they have a saying on the podcast Down to Birth that it's like, hear everyone, but listen to yourself. It's like, you can hear people's opinions. That's fine. But like nobody has an intuition like a mom's intuition that is a God-given discernment. And I also know, like I have a confidence because no one has researched as much as I have, like who's usually giving me the judgmental advice. It's like, that's great that that's what you think, but do you like, I don't even have the desire anymore to explain why I make that decision. I'm like, that's fine. We don't have to come to a consensus. Like this isn't a vote. You can have your opinion. Like, and it's just, it's like a new found authority that like, nope, like I'm going to do the best I can for my kid. Cause I know nobody wants a better outcome than me and her dad, you know? So
yeah,
it's great.
Yeah. I think that, and that's so good. Cause yes, you're always going to have people telling you how to raise your child.
Yeah.
And I think so often it's based on their own opinion and their own experience. And
failures that they wish they would have not.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like offensive. Like if you don't do it the way I did it.
Oh yeah.
Now I'm offended because how dare you? Because you're saying I did something wrong versus like I feel like you and I, we continued to talk about this, but like, I'm like blown away sometimes. Like I research stuff or you tell me stuff and it's like, holy cow, like where was that information 12 years ago? But like, again, like I would have made a different choice.
Yeah.
But I didn't know. And that's okay. Like we move on, but like, I don't have to be offended by that.
And there's like, I've told many people, like I'm the last in my friend group to have kids. Like everybody else has kids, which is totally fine. But I've gotten to see every variation of pregnancy and birth of like from C-section to home birth. I've heard and seen it all. And I've been able to like collect information and be able to like go into this questioning or always seeking answers and questioning the narrative of what's going on. So I have the advantage of also like I have, it is 2022 and we can research things and there just is more information. There are apps that can, that were apps even a thing 12 years ago?
I don't know. Like sometimes I'm like, I don't know. Like it feels like a dinosaur age, but
my dog just barked. Ignore that. But yeah, but you do, again, I say this all the time. You do the best that you can with the knowledge that you have. Because even sometimes now, like I'll be reading a book. Like right now I'm reading Ina May Gaskin's Guide to Childbirth. And it's a really great book for pregnancy. If you're pregnant, you should read it. I'm reading it and she said something about like something you should have done in the first trimester. And I was like, oh crap, I didn't do that. And there's still, there will always be information that of like something you missed or something you feel like you fell short on. But I don't know. I feel like I have a healthy mindset of like, I did the best I could with the knowledge that I have. And no one's ever going to have a perfect pregnancy.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good reminder for all things, right?
My stupid dog.
Which is funny. I feel like I didn't even hear it till you said it. And then I was like, oh yeah, he is barking.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's like,
ignore. It's just
Yeah.
real life. He's upstairs.
okay.
It's fine.
It's fine.
Whatever.
Okay. So I think another thing we had talked about is just rest. And I feel like you've already alluded to that, but do you have any other comments on?
You almost have no choice but to like listen. Because I mean, there are times in all of the trimesters, I'm now in my third, in all the trimesters where I almost like I had no choice. And I'm not one to rest. I'm usually one to burn the candle at both ends typically. But when your body, like you have no choice, but like I cannot keep my eyes open,
Yeah.
even to do something that you want to do, like for fun. So I think I totally agree with you that it's maybe it's preparing the mom to be like, okay, you're not in control of the schedule, and
Yeah.
you just got to rest when you need it.
Yeah.
And know that it's not like, it's hard for me because for a while there I was like, oh, you're so lazy. Like, yeah, other women can push through this, I'm sure. And I'm like, okay, comparison is the thief of joy. Not going to do this. Like my body is just, there's, I do hypnobirthing. Have you heard of hypnobirthing?
Maybe, but if I have, I feel like it's been from you.
It's like it's a class that you can take, that teaches you how to breathe and teaches you all about like labor and stuff. But they're really into like affirmations of like your body is doing exactly what it needs to do to create a human. So like when you get like hypercritical about like whether it's weight gain or, mommy brain or whatever, it's just like your body is doing exactly what it has to do to create a human. So you have to give yourself some grace. And that's what I've had to come to terms with rest. I mean, even today I took a nap from like 2:30 to 3 because I was like, I couldn't function.
Yeah.
But it's good.
That is good. Yeah. I think we undervalue rest and we think we're weak somehow, and I think it potentially goes back to what you said with that when you were touring and someone was like, the comparison of like, I'm pregnant, so I'm way more tired than you, right? Like,
Yeah.
I feel like when we hear people say that, sometimes the struggle is, well, everyone else also goes through this and they don't rest, so I should be fine.
Yeah.
Versus like actually listening to your body.
Yeah.
Like there's so many women who after pregnancy, their body just crashes. And it's like, what happened? It's like, well, for years, you probably weren't listening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Versus leaning into it now, because then you teach your children to lean into it. Like, what is your child actually telling you? And I think that there's moments where our children, based on how sick they are, based on, I mean, even to the point where they may say like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go there. I just want to rest. I'm tired. But I feel like there's often times where our kids are like crying out for rest. And parents are like, no,
Nope,
you made
go to soccer.
Like you made a commitment. You have to follow through with this. And then it's like, but did they have the ability to understand the commitment that they were making? And like, if they're getting sick and their emotions are falling apart and they're struggling, like maybe they just need rest.
Yeah.
But if we can't listen to our bodies, then how would
Talk
they?
about like indoctrination into the rat race of life, of like hustle and grind. Like I'm all about working hard, and we're both entrepreneurs, and that it's not the fact of working hard, it's the fact of we're like conditioning our kids to basically be exhausted all the time and basically live in adrenal fatigue and not listen to their bodies and just shut off those certain receptors just to what?
Right.
To play a soccer game.
Right.
Like it's great and it builds character, but to what demise a little.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We,
or what pressure the poor kids are under. Like sometimes I've seen people's kids' schedules of like, they have soccer at, so I feel like I'm really knocking on soccer. I don't even watch the sport. But like
your children are never playing soccer. Is that what I'm hearing?
I was not athletic. So if she gets my genes, she'll be real crafty, and that will be her, that will be her sport. But it's like soccer, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, who can keep up with that schedule? And then I have a friend who's just like, oh yeah, my kid's school is trying to get her like to look at colleges. She's 13.
Stop. What?
13. And they're like, yeah, they sent home like pamphlets for college. And I was like, is that earlier than usual? He's like, yeah, but they're just trying to prepare her for what she wants to do for the rest of her life. I'm like, at 13? I was like, I'm 28 and like a grown adult and sometimes don't know what I want to do with my life. Like, what is a 13-year-old going to do with college pamphlets?
It's a whole indoctrination that is a whole other podcast,
Of just,
right? Like, what are we, like, no, you're just trying to, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we can.
That's just going to be a whole other tangent I have.
Yeah.
It's probably not helpful to pregnancy.
Yeah. ADD. You were going to say something, though. I cut you off.
I know. Now my brain went to something else. No, I just was laughing because the other day I asked one of Alex's friends, I was like, do you play any sports? Like, and he's like, I do parkour. And I don't know why I was like trying really hard because it was just so sweet, but I was like trying really hard not to like laugh because I didn't want to make it. Like, I didn't want to make them think I was making fun of him because I totally wasn't. I was like, I love that. Like, yeah, no, I'm too busy with my parkour. That is amazing.
Oh, precious little soul.
I just laugh when you said sports. Like that came back in my mind.
I mean, technically, I was a starter in volleyball, but it's only because of my height. I could block really well.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I don't have a competitive bone when it comes to sports. I just don't care. But anyways.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. Yeah. I mean, I feel like we talk in the notes. I have like talking about mindset and rhythms.
We've done really well so far. I feel like we're kind of like, we're almost staying on topic. We're like profesh.
We are. It's just going to get better until we like, you know, go down. Oh, you're not there yet. That one.
Oh yeah.
That's just
I can't wait.
Yeah. So I feel like we've already talked a little bit about just the mindset, right? And just rhythms and this idea that, I don't know, we weren't made for the way that we weren't designed to run the race that life seems to, like American living seems to run in. And so what a beautiful gift to lean into that during pregnancy, like that mindset. Like I think we've already alluded to it in a lot of ways, but even just trauma. Like I feel like sometimes trauma or like past hurts, just kind of emotions get kind of flared during pregnancy. And again, I think is that
they do.
Yeah. Like is that God's way of being like, hey, just like we pass on our physical body, like we also pass on the emotions and we pass on, you know, the spiritual component. Like we pass on that generational thing, those generational pieces as well. So is that in the same way, kind of that idea of like, hey, lean in and process some of this because these also may be things that your child is going to need help with at some point, someday.
Yeah.
You know?
And if you have some kind of work that you've already done, then you can help your child all the more.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like if we're mentally creating the space for us to say, what is my body telling me in this same way? Like, what is my spiritual heart telling me? Like, is this an emotional flare on that end that I need to pray through and work through and like get counseling or, you know, like sit with people and just help walk me through some of this so that I have a better foundation as a mom.
Yeah. I think so like rest and mindset are like back to back. And I think those correlate a lot because, like Dave and I, like, as we're kind of like drawing close to, yes, we're 33 weeks pregnant, but as we get closer to her coming, it's like, oh, our social calendar is so packed. Like, and we've just basically canceled everything. We're just like, no, like we have like a, you know, like there's nesting that's already happening. I think for both of us, like he has like projects he wants to finish before she comes. And it's also a mindset of like prioritizing. Like I've been off social media for 2 weeks and it's been awesome. I'm like, because actually I have it as my background. It's like I have it set up as a notification. Nobody can see it. Can you see it on the camera? Can you see that, Dave? Like that? Hey. Oh, well, okay. I have like a protective screen. It's fine. I have like a where people, if someone's sitting next to you on the airplane, they can't like see you, what you're doing. Have you ever had that? Like you're on an airplane and someone's like, who is that? Like on.
No, I don't think I have.
multiple times.
Weird.
And I'm like, none of your business. I don't know who you are.
Weird. You know what? Okay, let's be honest. If I've never had that, maybe I'm the one who's.
Are you?
Hey, what you doing over there? What you watching?
But I have, I have it set up as like a little Polaroid, and I made like a little graphic because I'm extra like that. But it says, but seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all things will be added to you. Matthew 6:33. And that's just been like I put it as like a notification because I feel like right now I'm in a season where God's like, you're distracted with literally everything else. Like,
yeah.
And not in a way that adds value to
yes.
like the kingdom. So
yeah, I feel like that's good. Our family verse for like 2 weeks was Psalms 119. I don't remember what verse it was. I didn't do well at memorizing it apparently, but it's turned my eyes from worthless things and kind of that same idea. Like, you know, we have found that 6 days of work and 1 solid day of rest makes a huge difference to the point where like my physical body just starts to like stop on Saturdays. Like I can't do it even if I want to do it because my body's just like, nope, you're done. And it's not like I'm always that tired, but it's just like no rest, you know? And I just, that productiveness, like when our eyes are turned towards something else.
Yeah.
Because it's worthless. Like some of this is worthless.
Yeah. And it's like yeah. I'm working through all that. That's what I feel like
we all are. I don't feel like it ever ends. Because then sometimes I feel like the older my kids get, they'll say things or do things. And I'm like, ooh, that sounds like me and not in a great way. Right.
Yeah.
And like, it's always kind of bringing up that stuff. Or they get older and then you go into survival mode. And it's like, because I think that going back to this idea of what do you do when you're pregnant, like so many of us have these grand ideas and expectations. So I feel like I didn't put this in the notes, but I feel like it took us a long time, years, to write down or cultivate what we believe is our family vision and kind of our mission statement. And like, remind me that you gave us access to.
Oh, the, yes.
What am I?
It's the crap. Yes, I know what you're talking about. Where you make your 1 year, your 5 year, and your 10-year plan.
Yeah. And I think it was like, write your obituary and like work backwards. But again, this idea of like, what do we want our family to look like? What should.
Instead of running at every single squirrel that passes by.
Yeah. Yeah. Because then there's no vision.
Yeah.
And then you're in survival mode. And I think that what a beautiful thing to be able to start your life into that, where it took us years and years of just surviving and just running the rat race to be like, this isn't what we want. Like, this is not all what we want.
Why are we actually doing this?
Yeah. So how do you cultivate that? Well, you start by teaching your kids. And that means you have to look at your rhythm. Like one of the biggest questions I ask clients is like, what does your morning look like? What does your rhythm look like? What are things that you do? And when you can look at your day and you have no idea, like, I don't know, it's just different every day. Like that should be a clue that we're in survival mode.
Yeah.
Instead of like, it may not have to be a schedule. Like at 8 o'clock, I do this. And at 9 o'clock, I do this. But in general, what is the flow? I wake up and I, read my Bible and I have a cup of coffee and then I do a load of laundry and I go for a walk. Like what is just a goal or a rhythm?
Yeah.
And I think that our bodies, I was talking to a friend about vitamin D, which is again, a whole other conversation, but this idea of like, should we be able to hold on to all the vitamin D we need all winter long? Or is like, why are we running through it faster? And there's a whole big conversation on that. But she said, I think back to like Little House on the Prairie when they would like.
I'm watching that right now.
I love it. And they would like get snowed in and they wouldn't go anywhere for like months. Like they wouldn't try like, and this idea of.
But they would still have to go out and like tend to the chickens and like.
Yeah. But like it's different. Like that was kind of like a daily rhythm, but then their seasonal rhythms, like you had to really love your family, I guess. I mean, you're all living there.
Yeah.
But like the idea of like, you would have gone to bed earlier and you would have, even the chickens like know when to wake up based on the sun, Yeah. And so just the idea of like, it could be a gift to sit in the moment of what do we want our family to look like? And that changes. But that mindset piece, the rhythm, the rest, like all of that, if you can't establish that when your kids are little and when you're pregnant, it's going to be so much harder to ever reverse. And I know people who do. I know people who have teenagers, junior hires, and they like put a halt on everything and totally make, a 180 turn. It's just harder.
Yeah.
Versus your kids never know the difference.
Yeah. It can be done. I think that's
sure.
why these things come up in pregnancy though, so that you can, like, for me, it's a challenge to, like, I was telling Dave just today, I was like, it's hard for me to sit in silence. Like, as I work, I have a podcast going, because if there isn't a podcast going, my thoughts distract me then. And so, like, I have a podcast going so that I can focus. But I'm challenging myself that when I'm not working on something, I'm just like letting silence happen, which is so difficult. Silence
which is one reason
the
why.
worst.
Yeah, I think that's one reason why people just don't slow down either. Like, I know people who, like, they can't be home. They can't be home. They can't be in silence. Like, it drives them crazy. And so I'm curious why. But why is that? For you, I get it from a stimulation perspective. That's how Alex is. Like, he will do better. It drives John and I nuts. But, like, sometimes he will do better if he's listening. I'm like, how are you listening to something while you're writing a paper? Like, it makes no sense to me. But it's like, yeah, like, it drowns out the noise.
Yeah.
And so it helps him focus.
Yep.
It's super fun.
Yeah. It's real great. It's real great. Love that for us.
I love it. All right. So the next thing we're going to talk about is how do you prepare just your physical body for labor itself? I was laughing because I was thinking about when I had Alex, and again, the way, I mean, I don't think that it is common, but it shouldn't be normal. But, like, I pushed for over 3 hours. And so the biggest thing.
Were you on your back?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So again, like.
But the doctors were like, that's the optimal position.
Right.
It's
Well,
not.
and I laughed because what I didn't realize, like, because I was, like, pulling up for that long, my arms were so tired, like, 2 days later, that, like, it was hard to even hold him because my arms were so weak. And so I remember with Kate before we went into labor, I was like, I got to lift weights. I have to, like, lift. And I, like, intentionally went and lifted weights. So I was just laughing because I was like, yeah, that was me preparing my body. Not in a way that actually makes sense according to how our bodies do this, but in a way that I was like, oh no, my arms were so tired. Which is probably not the thing most people should be focusing on. But so some of the things I came up with, but I feel like you would probably talk on it better from just a nutritional standpoint.
Yeah.
Because you were drinking it right now. And I was like, I didn't know this was a thing before, like, a couple days ago.
I'm drinking it right now.
Mm-hmm.
I have the worst glass because it's clear you can't really see it, but it's red raspberry leaf tea. And it's great for toning the uterus, strengthening the uterus. And also I'm eating 6 dates a day, which also, it's been proven to cut your first stage of labor down by 50%. But other ways, like, to prepare, like, your body, I would say, like, right now I'm doing a hypnobirthing course, which is, it not only goes through, like, each stage of labor, factors that go into having a successful labor, mindset, the, like, self-hypnosis part of it, deep breathing. Mm-hmm. Also, have you ever heard of a perineum massage?
Yes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. That's the good time I'm on right now. So, cause, you know, like,
right.
There's conflicting studies on whether it's beneficial or not, but is
it hurting anything though?
No, it's not.
No.
But some studies say that it helps reduce tearing and, or at least it desensitizes the area when, like, you do have your baby, like, in your pelvis resting on your perineum. So,
okay.
Yeah. It gives you that sensation to practice of, like, oh, I need to relax my pelvic floor, like, relax or breathe through that sensation.
Yeah.
Also, I guess, as we talk about, like, preparing your body for birth.
Well, and I think one quick note is also, if we prepare, like, yes, you're preparing through all the ways we've talked about, but when it's specific to labor, I think if we prepare well, we bounce back better. Would you say, like, from what you've researched or like come across, or like the people who speak on this, like so many of my friends are like, my body's never been the same. But then I have friends who are like, my body's way better because I did some of the work beforehand. Yeah. I did some of the prep work beforehand. And this idea, like it's, a joke, like when I would do CrossFit, that if there were jump ropes, like in the workout, every woman would run to the bathroom and put a pad on because they're like, we're going to pee. Like, and again, this idea of like,
that's pelvic floor problems.
Right. So if we do all this prep work and then even a side note to that, like there's a lot of trauma that babies go through when they're coming into the world. And someone like my son, who was literally stuck there for 3 hours, that's a big trauma on top of forceps and everything else that were used with him. But like the more we can prepare our bodies, we bounce back better, our labor is better, and it's less trauma on the baby.
Yeah.
So you can move on to the next topic. I just feel like it's also important to note why preparing for labor could be significant.
Yeah. Not only physically, but also like understanding the process of labor and the different ways different places do it is something we shouldn't skirt over, which maybe that's something we're going to talk about later.
I think so. Maybe.
Yeah. I think this is going to definitely be a 2-parter. We're doing it.
No, how long we gone, Dave? Dave's like, it's midnight, guys.
This has been an hour. Okay. No.
I was excited to get to the next point, so I guess that'll be the beginning of the next episode.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be a doozy. We'll see. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Thanks for being here with us today. We would love to connect with you over on Instagram at @underthesun_podcast. Please help us out by subscribing on YouTube, leaving a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We'll see you next time. Please remember this information is made available to you for informational and educational purposes only. This is in no way a substitute for medical advice.